all of the adults were beheaded. The kids were bayoneted.
Oof.
So, and it's one of those things where it's like, you wonder what the decision to just not, like, what went through the Japanese mind, saying, okay, well, the adults will cut their heads off, but then the kids will just stab them. Like, do they feel like they were giving them an easier death than cutting their heads off?
I don't know what's.
I'm going to disagree there. I would give me the head off rather than being stabbed.
American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesdays gone down. Throw it all away. Throw it all away.
Welcome to another episode of American Timelines by History for Jerks. I'm Joe, and Amy has the weekend off, or day off, or the month off, or we haven't done an episode in a while, so she's got the fall off. But I'm joined by two co-stars this week to help me finish out 1943. First, you know him as a World War II buff that's been on here before, and a brand new homeowner, Hunter Brizzle, Fushhizzle. Welcome, Hunter Brizzle.
Nice to be here.
And
Thanks for having me, Joe.
We're also joined by our friend and secret lover from the Nerd School podcast, Artstar. Art Stizzle.
We are. Art Stizzle. I don't know how I feel about that one.
Art Stizzy?
It doesn't work. I don't feel like it works.
He's going to mess up the AI recording again. He's already in here as Thanos.
Oh, because it says he's Thanos.
Yeah.
Thanos.
Yes. Well, thank you guys.
Thanos.
Thank you guys for being here. These guys have joined me. Hunter is a World War II buff, and Art knows something about everything, and I've assigned them some events for November and December of 1943.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Don't. I mean, I know things, but, don't have these people expect.
Jack of all trades.
What's the name? Keith Jennings? Is that his name? The Jeopardy guy?
Oh, Ken Jennings. Ken Jennings.
Yeah.
Alex Trebek.
Yeah, Alex Trebek.
Art
That's what I was
is,
thinking. I was like,
well, when it comes to pop culture, I tell people this all the time. Artstar, you're a lot like Gruff from the Gruff and Loud show. You guys have
the most mundane stuff that no one really gives a shit about.
But there's rarely a pop culture item, whether it be a book or a comic book or a band or a movie, a television show, a series that you don't have at least something to say about. Like maybe you haven't seen it, or maybe you've seen one episode, but you know of everything. You're like these wise mages or something sitting on a mountain somewhere that you're aware of everything. And I tell people at work, like, you have to. The only thing I can imagine, Art is at home consuming 4 media streams at once. Like, you must be playing a video game, you must have the radio on, a TV show on, a Netflix streaming, taking in multiple things at the same time.
I'm glad I'm not the only one, Art, because that's me to a T. Like, I've too many things and then I can't listen to anybody.
I've seen you in action. Hunter has. He had Hunter will be like having Discord going, this other thing going, doing some other
But with
things
that, let's go ahead, folks, and jump right into November 1943. Are we ready? Are you guys strapped in and ready?
Let's do it.
Ready as we'll ever be, I guess.
Ready to rumble.
Okay, because I'm going to skip all the way to November 3rd, which is a Wednesday of 1943. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the American film actor and playwright Sam Shepard.
Yeah,
but he was
familiar.
That was his birthday. He was born. He won an Academy Award in 1983 for The Right Stuff and a Pulitzer Prize in 1979 for Buried Child. And he was born in Fort Sheridan, Illinois. That's all I have to say about Sam Shepard. I didn't realize. I knew he was a playwright. I don't think I knew he won an Academy Award.
He was also in The Pelican Brief, which I never watched, but I remember.
Okay.
Either tuning into HBO either when it was ending or just starting, and there was an airplane flying, and then it said the Pelican Brief, and then it either started or ended, and then I changed the channel.
Is that what made you become a pilot?
No, definitely not.
No,
like I said, I just remember the Pelican Brief coming on screen, and then me being like, I don't want to watch that. That sounds boring.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff when I was younger that came on that I never watched and never had anything to do with. But now I'm older and a little bit smarter. I can maybe understand things more. And I've always said, I want to go back and watch that. And so maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll watch Pelican Brief. Because I also don't know anything about that. And then we're going to jump to another birthday, November 7th, 1943. See if this floats your boat. Canadian rock and folk singer, songwriter, 8-time Grammy Award winner, and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, born in Fort Macleod, Alberta. This person's real name was Roberta Joan Anderson. It's Joni Mitchell was born.
Oh.
Are you guys Joni Mitchell fans?
I'm aware of Joni Mitchell.
You are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You ever listen to it, Artstar?
Joni Mitchell.
Big Yellow Taxi.
If I'm not mistaken, loves the Baltimore Orioles.
Oh, yeah? An Orioles fan?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, she is. Oh, yeah, she is.
Didn't someone covered Big Yellow Taxi, didn't they, in like the early 2000s? But that was originally her song, I think.
Big Yellow Taxi?
Yeah.
That could be.
Big Yellow Counting Crows covered it.
I love Counting
but
Crows.
that was originally a Joni Mitchell jam.
Is that your favorite? Joni Mitchell
jam? Oh yeah. Like, do you know that song?
Sing it.
Took all the trees and put them in a tree museum. They charge the people $1.50 just to see them. No. There's a lot of it's very much like Hanson. Bop. There's a bunch of
I love
freestyling. Yeah.
I don't think Hanson's bad. I hated it when it came out.
They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. That one? No? Don't know that?
Oh, that's
Art knows it.
Yeah.
I would maybe recognize it if I heard the actual song instead of, no offense, you singing it.
I misspoke to it. It's Joan Jett, not Joni Mitchell.
Oh, you're thinking of Joan Jett. That's an Orioles fan. God dang it, Art. Now because of that,
I flopped.
Now I'm going to have to move on to something else that happened on November 7th, 1943. And that's that U.S. Marine Sergeant Herbert J. Thomas, who was 25 years old, was killed in combat during the Battle of Coromocina Lagoon on Bougainville Island. I'm terrible at pronouncing things. While leading a charge against Japanese machine gun position, Sergeant Thomas threw his body on top of a live hand grenade in order to protect his men from the explosion. He would posthumously be awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroism. He's another guy that I think they probably inspired Captain America.
Cap. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think either one of you guys delved into him, did you? Herbert Thomas?
No.
Yeah, that was
but I remember you bringing that up a couple weeks ago. When
and I didn't. I also didn't
familiar.
research any more of him, but man,
they named a naval warship after him. The
Herbert
USS
Thomas.
Herbert J. Thomas.
Herbert J. Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
That guy sacrificed himself, man, for others. And
I feel like I'm not familiar with Hunter's story, but I feel like most of the the ones that you pick for this one, it's the whole sacrifice is big.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big topic
for
this week.
Yeah, I think so. This is the part in World War II. I don't know, Hunter. November of 1943. Is this a particular? Is there something about this part of the war? Is it still considered? Well, I guess.
Well, just based on what Art just said, leading up to this, to study for my bit, I listened to a couple podcasts that dove into the topic, and one of the historians that I listened to mentioned that this was an era of self-sacrifice that you don't find anymore. There's a reason it was called the Greatest Generation.
Yeah.
the disregard for one's own life in thought of others just doesn't exist anymore. And that's a lot of why a lot of people don't believe that there will be a third world war, is because we're just selfish. We care too much about our own lives. And any sort of a long lasting hot war would be fought by either remote units like drones or missiles,
there's not like the boots on the ground thing seems gone. Like you said, people don't care about issues enough. Our attention spans are this big, short. I'm putting my finger short. We forget about. We're outraged more than ever for 30 seconds, and then we've forgotten it.
And then we scroll.
And we move on to the next thing. Next outrage. And then it's like, even like when you're canceled. Yeah, they're canceled. Are they canceled anymore? Did we even remember who we canceled? Why? It's like, are they that canceled? I don't know. I mean, unless they're in jail. So it is weird. It's this weird time of attention spans are. I mean, a lot of it, I think, is the technology we have at our fingertips now. We have all of the knowledge of every supercomputer, of every encyclopedia at our fingertips now. Like 3-year-olds have the knowledge of like physicists have in their phone. Like they can look up. Yeah. Like before, you had to study and research and whatever. Go to the library and find the topic and get a book out and encyclopedia and find your thing and then another reference and another reference, and now everything's just in our hands
at your fingertips.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I've mentioned before. I think it's weird that we still call it a phone. Yeah. Even though like the phone component is the
it's the least thing we do.
The smallest component of it.
And how often do you actually talk to someone on it?
Yeah.
With your voice, yeah. Why are we calling it a phone? Yeah, that's crazy. But I think so. Gosh, I hope it means there's not going to be a world war because, like you said, nobody cares enough. But what they can still do is nuke and missiles and destroy. Which hopefully not. But and there's that sacrifice that all of our grandfathers were, grandparents and grandmothers were like people that sacrificed for their family and the greater good and all that. That's
part of what made the war. That's part of what made the war last so long. If you look at a country like Japan, where the sacrifice was considered the highest honor, and if you didn't do that, you would be disremembered by everyone. So there was, it just went on forever because an entire nation would give their lives.
Yeah, how do we get back to that? Do we get
back?
Do
we want to?
Yeah.
Do we want to get back to that?
I don't know. Ask the aliens that are in the ocean.
You say aliens in the ocean?
Haven't you heard this? The whole UAP? Didn't you listen to the UAP hearing?
I ignored this one, but is that what they're saying now?
I try to watch it, and our attention spans are this big, so I'm relying on TikTok people summing it up. So the big thing is now everybody's saying, "Oh, they've said that there's aliens in the ocean," but then there's this whole counter TikTok thing. It's like that means they're not aliens then if they're in the ocean, you idiot, because they're in our planet. So they're saying the UFOs are going under. They're supposedly off the coast of California. There's some island that's forbidden, and that's under that island is where all the.
And this is recent stuff.
This was last week. They did
a
Senate hearing or whatever on it. So I don't know if any of it's true.
I wonder in these Senate hearings when they come out of them, do they actually let's say they're in the cafeteria, being like, what did we just sit through? Like,
what did we just talk about, guys?
But when it came down to anything, like, can you show us pictures? No, that's class. I can't show you pictures. I promise it exists. That's too far. And I was like, just show. Everybody just is like, and then nobody. And then the other thing is, all of America didn't even respond. Like, nobody cares. They're too busy with the price of eggs and whatever else, and they don't care. Yeah. Like, nobody cares about anything.
Oh, that makes me think. I've been. Let me know if you guys would be interested in this. I've been thinking about starting. I don't use Twitter at all, but I've been thinking about. Well, sorry, X. It's all happening on X.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about starting an X account called The Price of Milk.
Yeah.
And I'll just go into a grocery store every day and take a picture of like a specific like the same grocery store every day, same
milk carton,
gallon of milk, and see what happens. And then I'll build like an Excel sheet and track it.
There you go.
We'll see if the truthers are truthful.
You should do eggs, gas, and milk. Yeah. Those are the things.
Well, we got 3 of us here. Like, let's all.
Okay. One of us is gas, one of us eggs, one of us is milk.
We'll
follow each other. We'll each only follow one account, and or 2 accounts.
And we'll just share. We'll just share each other constantly.
So one account will be called gas, one will be milk, and one will be eggs.
Yeah.
It'll just be.
We'll each follow 2 people.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Are you following eggs on Twitter yet?
It probably exists. It probably already exists. Anything you think of has already been.
But aren't people leaving?
Yeah, people are leaving X in masses because of Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, they're going.
So now Blue Sky is supposedly
Blue
the one.
Sky, yeah,
which I haven't used yet.
No,
so somebody has to tell me.
I don't use X enough to care.
Well, let's jump into sports, shall we? November 12th, 1943 was a Friday. And in an unusual college football game, the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Illinois. Do you know what the Illinois mascot is, Hunter? You're not a sports
The
guy.
Illini. The Fighting Illini.
Illinois Illini.
Yeah.
They were tied 26-26. And the Buckeyes' pass on the last play of the game fell incomplete. Players left the field, and most of the 36,331 spectators filed out of the stands. 12 minutes later, the players were told to return to the field. None of the fans, coaches, or players had realized that an official had called an offsides penalty against the Illini, and 2 seconds were put back on the clock. And so with a second chance, Ohio State kicked a field goal for a 29-26 win with nobody in the stadium.
Awesome.
They couldn't figure that out before everyone left.
That's what I can't figure out, how it took 12 minutes to
Wait, who won? It was Ohio that won?
Ohio State won.
Yeah, no, that was some paid under the table kind of shit.
Yeah,
no way.
Yeah, that's
You're telling me 12? What'd you say? 12 minutes later?
12 minutes. I came.
12 minutes later, a ref came up and was like, "Hey."
In 12 minutes, like they all got out in 12 minutes.
Yeah, no. Mm.
But that's a thing that happened in 1943. That's a thing.
Well, the stadium was probably much smaller back then. Or how many people did you say?
36,000. I mean, they're way bigger now, but still, that's a lot of people in the 40s.
That's
but
half the Panthers stadium.
They all were drunk because everybody had flasks, back then. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You hear stories of people in the 40s just like throwing.
I don't know anything about that, but you hear stories.
Yeah, you hear stories. You hear it from old people. Well, you don't anymore because most of them are dead. 1943, November 14th was a Sunday. And you guys will have to, I don't know if I marked which one's your story. So if I get to yours and I start telling, just tell me to shut up and jump in. The U.S.Navy destroyer USS William D. Porter. Is this anybody's?
No.
So one of you guys has this story, right? No, nobody did this one? All right, this one's crazy. November 14th, 1943 was a Sunday. The U.S. Navy destroyer USS William D. Porter inadvertently fired an armed torpedo at the battleship USS Iowa. If it wasn't bad enough, author Kermit Bonner would note later, the Iowa was carrying President Franklin D. Roosevelt at the time, along with Secretary of State Cordell Hull and all the country's World War II military brass. The Iowa and its escort were 50 miles east of Bermuda, and a demonstration of torpedo accuracy and range was being performed for the commander-in-chief. Torpedoman Lawton Dawson had failed to remove the explosive primer from torpedo tube 3, which is a prerequisite for target practice. As soon as the torpedo was launched, it made the unique sound of an armed weapon, which was speeding directly toward the Iowa that had the president on it. The radio man on board the W.D. Porter was able to signal the Iowa to turn right to evade the approaching bomb just in time, and the torpedo detonated beyond the battleship. So it just missed. That to me is crazy that they were able to warn him and have him turn just in time. Because I think of these giant ships, and I think it was they must have been, a little bit farther away than I'm picturing. The entire crew of the W.D. Porter was placed under arrest and held at Bermuda, while Dawson would be sentenced to 14 years of hard labor. President Roosevelt intervened and asked that he not be punished for the accident. Writing in his personal logbook that evening, President Roosevelt noted that had the torpedo hit the Iowa in the right spot, with her passenger list of distinguished statesmen, military, naval, and aerial strategists and planners, it could have had an untold effect on the outcome of the war and the destiny of the country.
That's wild. That's absolutely wild.
Isn't that crazy as fuck?
So I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry, and it says that so they were under radio silence, and apparently they first tried to use a signal lamp to tell them that the torpedo was incoming, but they accidentally instead signaled that they were backing up. And so then they were like, okay, and so then they broke radio silence and said, hey, turn.
See, this is where I feel like aliens are involved and had to like change time. Like they were had to be like, okay, these idiots are blowing each other up. The war is gonna end a different way. They killed their own president. They're not gonna stop fucking Adolf Hitler. So aliens have to like, yeah, they just like intervened.
A little Mulder and Scully, they went back and put everything right before it happened.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Corrected.
I mean, there's YouTube rabbit holes where people say like the whole reason George Washington got like the dude took so many bullets and never died. Like they just went through his jacket all the time. Aliens were there watching him. There's stories of aliens in the Civil War.
Dumb luck.
Young teenage me used to always feel like deja vu was literally us actually reliving the actual thing, where like some alien or something abducted us, wiped our minds, but then brought us back.
Put us back in.
Right, but they put us back where we at a time that we've already experienced, and they didn't go far enough back. Like that's what I literally used to think that.
That's what deja vu is, right?
Yeah. Like I've done this before,
I'm with you on that. I do feel like something's not normal with this, like the simulation thing, maybe, or I mean, with this Trump thing, like we are a simulation in an alien's garage, and he's 14 and he's in high school. It's an experiment, and he's like, look, let's see what happens when I put the biggest idiot in the world in charge again. This is hilarious.
We sound like winged conspiracy theorists.
It is, yeah, that's fine. At this point, I'm fine with that. Well, that same day. You got more on that?
I'm reading here that as a result of this incident, U.S. ships would routinely greet the destroyer with the joke, "Don't shoot, we're Republicans."
Yeah, because people start fucking with them then. Hey, you guys are the idiots that
like, you guys are the idiot that almost killed the president.
Yeah, yeah. You would rip on those people. Well, are you guys familiar with Leonard Bernstein?
Leonard Bernstein?
Bernstein.
Was he one of the Bears?
Leonard Bernstein.
He's
I don't know from
composer.
That Billy. Yeah, great composer. I know from the Billy Joel "We Didn't Start the Fire." He's one of the names there. Leonard Bernstein, I think.
West Side Story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you a little story about Leonard Bernstein when he was 25 years old in November of 1943. He was a little-known assistant director of the New York Philharmonic, and he was charged with arranging the rehearsals for conductor Arthur Rodzinski and guest conductors. The orchestra's concert was going to be broadcast live on the CBS radio network, but guest conductor Bruno Walter became ill, and Rodzinski was too far away from Carnegie Hall to arrive in time. So Bernstein was called in to fill in and became the youngest person to ever conduct the New York Philharmonic at age 25. The next morning, the New York Times gave an excellent review for Bernstein's performance. Bernstein began a successful career as both a conductor and a composer. There you go. That happened the same day as the torpedo incident.
Next man up. Got to be ready.
Next man up. Just like the Pittsburgh Steelers when the quarterback goes down. Next man up.
Got to be ready all times. Have your helmet and pads on.
Can you guys hear You guys hear the train whistle?
No.
Okay, Mike's not picking up. All right, November 28th, 1940, was a Sunday, and Randy Newman was born, American singer-songwriter in L.A. Randy Newman.
Friend in me.
You go to yeah, that's a big one. I love Family Guy does a funny Randy Newman.
Yeah.
Go look that up. That's the funniest shit.
Yeah.
He's like singing. He's like singing about everything he sees, and it's really funny.
Have you seen the one where they do a thing on Maud? Like, and then there's Maud, and they just go through like a whole list of names.
Yeah,
Like, and then there's Maud.
That's a funny one too. Well, Randy Newman was born to a Jewish family on his father's 30th birthday in L.A. He's the son of Adele Dixie. She went by Dixie. She was a secretary, and Irving George Newman, who was an internist. He lived in New Orleans, Louisiana as a small child and spent summers there until he was 11 when his family returned to L.A. He had 3 uncles who were Hollywood film score composers, Alfred Newman, Lionel Newman, and Emil Newman. He graduated from University High School in L.A., home of the Wildcats. Team colors are blue and persimmon. Do you guys know what color persimmon is? Persimmon?
Like a
purplish?
I don't know. I was hoping you would tell me. I
like
saw
purple, bluish.
purple. Oh, you should know. You're an artist. You paint, right? Do you have any persimmon paint? Is it pronounced persimmon? Persimmon?
Well, looking at a picture of a persimmon, it is straight up orange.
Like salmon? Like a salmon color?
Hold on, persimmon paint. Yeah, actually, it is very close to salmon. We were way off. It's kind of orangish.
So they're now the home of the Wildcats, but they used to be the home of the Warriors, but they were changed after the Southern California Indian Center petitioned the LAUSD to eliminate the mascots and names of all schools that had American Indian mascot and names. So how about that?
When did that happen? When did they petition that?
In 1997, the LAUSD decided to eliminate all American Indian mascots. The LAUSD decision was upheld in federal court, but the California Racial Mascots Act, a bill which would eliminate American Indian mascots and names statewide, was vetoed by California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger twice. He wanted to keep those.
My elementary school, we used to be the Alamance Indians. And then they were like, you can't be Indians anymore, which I get it. It's kind of a stupid name anyways when you think about how dumb Columbus was thinking it landed in India. But
yeah, well, my kids, all my kids, when I think about it, my kids' elementary school was the Indians, and they're now the Wolves. And their high school.
That's what we switched to. Was that just like a nationwide thing? They were like, if you're Indians, you have.
Well, and they had a big
Wolves
totem
now.
pole when she first started going. There's a totem pole in the front, and they had to take it down.
I think we had one of those too.
I think it's still behind the school. It's like laying there. And then my daughter's high school was they were the Rebels, and they just like recently changed to the Bears, and it was like. They were the Rebels, like they were like
you could have gone Star Wars with it.
Yeah,
you could have gone Star Wars.
Why did they just make it a Star Wars thing? But I guess they were just like, let's get away from that altogether. But I heard here that the kids wanted to do that. They chose to change it, and that's what. So here in California, the students chose Wildcats over the Gators and Jaguars. So there you go. That's what they did. Anyway. Notable alumni from that school where Randy Newman went include Tone Loc, Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, Roddy McDowell, Jeff Bridges, Judy Garland, and James Brolin, all in the same school.
Good genes at that school.
Randy Newman, yeah, the Wildcats.
What's in the water?
Yeah, it's talent. That is talent. But there's a lot of idiots probably, like dipshits with no talent, too. Okay. November 30th, 1943, we're going to go back to sports. It was a Tuesday. Notre Dame won the mythical national college football title despite a 19-14 loss 3 days earlier to the Great Lakes Naval Training Center as the Associated Press announced the results of its ninth and final poll of 131 sports writers. The Fighting Irish received 86 first-place votes and 1,259 points overall, while the Iowa Pre-Flight Seahawks had 1,028 points, but only 12 votes overall.
Wait, what sport?
Football. Iowa Pre-Flight Seahawks.
And how do you get that many points?
Those were votes. I think they tally up. There was a scoring system because they used to not play. There wasn't a college playoff. They just like voted.
Because you probably had to travel all those people.
Yeah. So
And that wasn't okay. That makes sense.
Other first place votes went to Purdue University, Del Monte Pre-Flight, Duke University, and Great Lakes NTC, and the University of Michigan with one apiece. Yeah.
I'm curious as to what some of these schools changed their names to, like what they used to be.
Yeah, Great Lakes Naval Training Center, like beat the number one team. Like that's kind of unheard of. But I guess we're in war, so they got the best of the best playing, probably, maybe. And now we're gonna jump to December. Are you guys ready to jump into December? Are you guys scared? Are you nervous?
December.
Send it.
Let's
December.
get it.
December 2nd, 1943 was a Thursday. At least 83 people were killed by the release of gas from chemical weapons in the Italian port of Bari, B-A-R-I, and another 545 were injured after a surprise air raid by 88 bombers from Germany's Luftwaffe. I can't say it.
Luftwaffe.
But listen to this. Unbeknownst to anyone except its commanding officers, the American merchant marine ship SS John Harvey had been carrying a cargo of 2,000 M47A1 mustard gas bombs. The ship was one of 17 Allied vessels that were sunk in the raid, but had stayed afloat until its deadly cargo had exploded. In that the only people who knew of the ship's cargo had been killed in the blast, physicians were uncertain of the cause of the blisters and burns of their patients until 9 days later when a British diver recovered a shell casing. So, ironically, this disaster would lead to a breakthrough in cancer chemotherapy because of the findings made during the attempt at diagnosis that patients exposed to the sulfur mustard gas had reduced white blood cell counts with the substitution of nitrogen for sulfur. The first compound that could fight cancer cells with minimal harm to healthy cells was created with the derivation of the drug mustine from nitrogen mustard compounds.
I literally had a discussion about this with my girlfriend's roommate yesterday.
Really?
About like cancer radiation treatments coming from a mustard gas accident.
A mustard gas accident, yeah. That blows my mind. That blows my mind that war led us to discover a cancer treatment.
Often some of the greatest innovations in our history come from wars.
Like what? Peanut butter and jelly?
Peanut butter jelly for sure. No.
That might have been from a war. That's just the greatest invention I can think of.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like machines, methods of production.
Oh yeah, they had to hurry up methods, right?
Yeah.
Like had to,
in order to fuel the war effort, we have to. I mean, that's how like production lines started. You know, everyone, all hands on deck.
All hands on deck. Child labor laws weren't there. That was the opposite of that. All right, December 3rd was a Friday, and Edward R. Murrow delivered his famous Orchestrated Hell broadcast over CBS Radio. And you have that memorized, don't you, Hunter?
Negative.
He was describing a nighttime bombing raid on Berlin by 619 Squadron, RAF, based at RAF Woodhall Spa. The night before, Murrow had been allowed to fly on board a 619. You're going to have to help me on this one, Hunter. 619 SQN RO Lancaster. Is that how you say it? Or do I say...
You said S19...
619 SQN Avro Lancaster, codenamed D for Dog, during the raid.
It was a heavy bomber of the Royal Air Force.
Okay.
Oh, it's got the split tail. Yeah. I like this plane.
So toward the close of his report, Murrow commented, "Men die in the sky while others are roasted alive in their cellars. Berlin last night wasn't a pretty sight. In about 35 minutes, it was hit with about 3 times the amount of stuff that ever came down on London in a night-long blitz." And so I guess that was a pretty famous speech broadcast.
Yeah. So the 619 is the bomb squadron.
Okay.
So it's like the group of planes. The Lancaster, the Avro Lancaster is the bomber that they were using.
Isn't that also a finishing move of?
I was wondering if you was going to do it, Joe.
I was waiting for you to chime in, Art.
I'm like, I was about to say, I know Joe's going to say something about Rey Mysterio. He has to. He's watching wrestling.
Wait, what's the move called?
The 619.
It's
Because of
619.
San Diego area code.
Is it like from the
it's an
top
area
rope?
code, though. That's
I was gonna say, like, is it a bomb?
Basically
it's
what
like
it is-
Bring him to the
it's
elbows?
kind of cool.
Basically
Describe
what
it, Art.
is the guy he's in between the second and the top and the middle rope. He's hanging over. Ray runs from one side of the ring to the other side of the ring, grabs the rope, swings his legs around, and hits
Oh,
the
yeah,
guy in
yeah.
the face.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I've seen. Yeah.
It's the
That's a good one.
619, which has nothing to do with this. It's just that's the area code of wherever he's from, right?
San Diego.
Art?
That's how he.
San
That's
Diego.
how he defeated the Undertaker.
Art, do you know every area code
I
in the
do
country?
not. I do
Oh,
not.
okay. Just thought I'd check.
It just
Oh,
says-
some people do. Some people do. All right, Major League, back to sports. The same day as Edward R. Murrow's speech on December 3rd, Major League Baseball Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis convened a meeting between National League and American League team owners. Huh?
I was just saying, Kennesaw Landis.
All right, Kennesaw. Oh, you know that. You know him? You're familiar with him, Art? Okay. He convened a meeting between National League and American League team owners and publishers from 8 African-American newspapers at the Hotel Roosevelt in New York to discuss the prospects of allowing black players to compete for jobs in the all-white organized baseball. 3 press representatives. Yeah.
Just listening to stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's not that long ago, man.
right, but then it's also one of those things where it's like, now if you watch baseball, there's still not a lot of African American representation in baseball.
Mhm.
I mean, there are players coming up, but it's still mostly, to some extent, all white, except for you might have a few,
Hispanic population
yeah.
is pretty large with baseball.
Yeah, that's
You know.
that's growing exponentially faster. But then it's because I don't want to say they raped them. That would be a hard thing to say. But they reach down and they start scouting these kids when they're like 15, 13 years old. When in America, if you see a little kid, if there's an all-black Little League team, it's almost like and they'll be great, but it almost comes off like they're the Harlem Globetrotters. It's like they're looking at these kids
It's like a gimmick.
it seems very gimmicky, but there they are in the Dominican poaching 13-year-olds, signing them to like these really long contracts, and before you know it, they come up here and they end up doing a Juan DeFranco because they didn't have a chance to grow up. So what do they do? I guess another story, but
Like Bryce Young, never had a chance to grow up. Just a high schooler playing football.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many other sports now, right? And so many teams and so many sports. So I would think I don't know, you hear these kids all the time that he played baseball and football and basketball, and then some of these athletes are so good they could choose a sport, and which one are you going to choose for a longer career? I guess baseball, I would think, would be wouldn't that be the longest career?
With baseball, you can get the millions, but it's not as fast unless you are that
the
top
money.
that top percentile that's really good. There have been there's some players who are
NFL kicker. That's what I want to be.
They get drafted out of high school in the first round, and they get a few million. But for the most part, it used to be the baseball draft was really long. Now it's only 5 rounds, I believe. But then even then, you're only getting because you get to start through the minors and work your way up. Unless you get drafted in those top 2 rounds, you're not getting a lot of money. Whereas in football and basketball, they're it's more of a progression to the point where you're going to get that money faster. So they're I choose football over baseball, even though I'm a good Russell Wilson was a great baseball player.
Oh yeah, that's right. Russ was the one. Yeah,
great example.
And he chose football.
Yeah.
Look at Tim Tebow.
Wasn't
Tim Tebow wasn't really good
Tebow?
at
I was gonna say,
wasn't
wasn't
good at
Tebow?
both.
Yeah.
He failed at all of it. But yeah, I mean, you think about it, minor league baseball players sometimes make shit.
They don't make any.
Like they make less than teachers.
Like I
sometimes.
said,
They have to like work a second job, like in the
unless-
office.
Unless
normally.
you're like you want someone who got drafted and a higher round, you got a big signing bonus. You're not making a lot of like people on football practice squads make more than some baseball players who are actually on major league. Well, I guess major league their minimum went up, but it used to be like you could make more playing on a practice squad of a football team than you could on a major league roster. Like now, in a minor, you definitely make more on a practice squad than you would if you were playing minor league baseball.
Yeah.
That's why they play.
It's funny. It's funny what we consider like professional sport. Like we call them professional sports, but they don't make near. I don't know if you guys remember. We used to have the Charlotte Hounds, professional lacrosse team.
Oh, it was lacrosse.
Yeah, and I knew guys that played on the team, and they all had second jobs.
Yeah.
It wasn't it's not enough to live on by any means. And I'm pretty sure they're completely gone now.
Do it for the love of the sport, bro.
If you really love it.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of this conference and meeting, the reporters had asked them to admit black players, and Landis declared at the end of the meeting that each club is entirely free to employ Negro players to any and all extent it pleases, unquote, but added that it would be, quote, solely for each club's decision, unquote, rather than a league-wide mandate. So then you kind of saw, as Amy and I already kind of covered the 50s and stuff, and how some clubs did integrate willingly and others didn't. And we even talked about some of the last teams to do it. It wasn't until later in the 50s. Some of the teams didn't even,
Yeah, well, it's that you can, but we're like you said, we're not mandating, or we're not sitting there saying you have to do it. Like if you're sitting there, your own is racist. Like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Yeah.
They can't play better than us.
Yeah, it's so crazy about that stuff. I don't know. It's just racism's a weird, awful thing. That's the thing. It's not that long ago, and then everybody's like, "Oh, it's ancient history. There's no more racism. Or all equal society. Obama fixed it." Anyway,
give me some of what they're smoking.
Yeah. December 8th, 1943 was a Wednesday, and American rock musician was born in Melbourne, Florida. See who can guess who it is first.
When you said Melbourne, I instantly was like, wait, is he Australian?
Florida.
Florida.
This guy was born this day, but he died in 1971. In 1947, he was 3 to 4 years old, and he allegedly witnessed a car accident in the desert, during which a truck overturned and some Native Americans were lying injured on the side of the road. He referred to this incident in the song Peace Frog with his band from their 1970 album, Morrison Hotel, and in his spoken word performances, Dawn's Highway and Ghost Song, on the posthumous 1978 album An American Prayer.
Oh.
He described this incident as the most formative event of his life. Jim Morrison of the Doors. And he made repeated references to it in imagery in his songs and interviews. And he believed the spirits of the ghosts of those dead Indians, as he called them, leapt into his soul. And that he was like a sponge ready to sit there and absorb it.
And this when he was 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's when he was 3 or 4. So he wasn't on peyote then. Jeez. Well, maybe he was. I mean, it was 1947. Yeah, I have a buddy who does a lot of drugs, and he claims to be Jim Morrison sometimes. December 18th was a Saturday. This is awful. Okay. Heinrich Himmler ordered new rules for arrest and deportation of Jews in Germany, revoking most previous exemptions for Jews who had married Gentiles. Most Jewish spouses were ordered deported to the nominally Jewish city of Theresienstadt in January rather than immediately to concentration camps. Exceptions continue to be made, however, for intermarried couples who had lost a son in combat and for those who had very young children at home. I just can't even fathom this whole thing, that they made rules for who would be murdered and destroyed and killed and in genocide. It's like weird. You can't even fathom this. That's the only reason I kind of kept that in there. It's like they actually parse out, like, oh, you're married, you can be saved. It's just, I don't know. This is crazy.
I mean, the line has to be drawn somewhere. You know, I mean, like, in order to, like, I feel like to stay in power like that, you have to have some semblance of
humanity, maybe.
No, I wasn't even gonna say humanity, but just like
it's insane.
Rules and regulations for people to believe that, like, like there's thought being put into this.
Yeah, you gotta hate certain things for a reason, like a orchestrated hate. Like, it's so bizarre, the whole thing. I mean, all of it. I don't know. Anyway, Keith Richards was born that same day. English rock guitarist and songwriter for the Rolling Stones in Dartford, Kent. And he will never die. And that brings us to December 19th, 1943. Is this somebody? This is you? This is you, Hunter? Or is this Art?
This is I.
Art. Okay, I didn't know who made that sound. I couldn't tell. Artstar.
He did the finger guns, and I did.
Oh, he did the guns, and you were making the sound. I was like, all right, Artstar.
So,
what happened on December 19th?
I have the Hopevale Martyrs. So, as I was researching this, it's one of those stories that I'm surprised that no one has made like a movie or anything about it. The one thing I did see is that someone did like a musical, and then on YouTube there is a I want to say it's a Filipino church. They had like a 3-hour thing where they did like a kind of like a memorial where they was singing and it was like talking about it. But like other than that, like I couldn't really find a lot. Like I literally tried to go through and find out about each person, each missionary, and it was like some of the stuff I could find, some I couldn't. But so to start, it's called this is from Wikipedia. The Hopevale Martyrs were Christian martyrs who died during World War II in what is present day Hopevale, Aguinaldo, Topaz, Capiz, Philippines. That's a mouthful.
See, that's at least I'm not the only one who has trouble saying all this stuff. So this is in the Philippines,
right? So the martyrs were Jenny Claire Adams, Professor James Howard Covell, Sharma Moore Covell. Remember those two, the Covels. Dorothy Antoinette Dow, Sing Amelia Erickson. I was able to find a little bit about her. Dr. Frederick Willer Meyer, Ruth Violet Meyer, Dr. Francis Howard Rose, Gertrude Coombs Rose, Reverend Earl Frederick Rounds, Louise Cummings Rounds, and Earl Douglas. There were also 3 children, one named Earl Rounds Jr. And so basically, these people were told, like the war was coming. They were told they should probably go home, get out of the country. But because they were doing the good Lord's work, they didn't want to leave, right? So, when the Japanese invaded the Philippines, they refused to surrender. So they basically went into hiding. And then they had Filipino friends, who basically helped them hide. And let's see. So the only way they were actually found was because an American pilot was captured. and tortured and gave them up. So we're talking about sacrifice, but here's an American pilot who gave them up because he was tortured.
Yeah.
Told them where to go, where to find them. So I found this other article on hhhistory.com, and it's written by what is this lady's name? Linda Thompson.
Okay.
And so she writes, the Americans' first hiding place lasted less than 10 days. The Japanese aerial surveillance was unrelenting. They needed a spot with better cover. That's when one of the refugees that was helping them had, suggested that they had, that there was a canyon that they were going to hide in. And you can find pictures of the areas where they were hiding out from.
Uh-huh.
These people would still, no matter what, leave. Whenever they was, they were doing patrols, trying to see if there was something, see if there were people hiding in the woods or whatever, they would leave out to go spread the word.
The Lord's word?
The Lord's word. Risk getting killed to go spread the Lord's word. Run back and hide. And this went on for, I think it was 11 months or so, until that's when they found the guy. And the guy basically gave them up. So, and this was on December 19th. So it was on December 19th, 1943, the Japanese staged an attack. The Americans got just minutes warning. A few escaped, slogging along streams and crawling through the dense forest undergrowth, but the Japanese rounded up 17. 5 couples, 3 single women, a single man, and 3 young children. And Professor Hopevale, he spoke Japanese. So,
okay.
He tried to plead for their lives and things. But they, the Japanese didn't want to have anything. They didn't want to listen. And so that's when they knew that they were going to die. So they said death wasn't inevitable. The team made a small request, which turned out to be the note that resonated throughout history. They asked for a time of prayer together. So all of the adults were beheaded. The kids were bayoneted.
Oof.
So, and it's one of those things where it's you wonder what the decision to just not, what went through the Japanese mind, saying, okay, well, the adults will cut their heads off, but then the kids will just stab them. Do they feel like they were giving them an easier death than cutting their heads off?
I don't know what's...
I'm going to disagree there. I would give me the head off rather than being stabbed.
So when you get decapitated, is it fast? Is it quick? You're just are you still alive for a second?
I would imagine it's pretty quick because you sever the spine.
So in this article she wrote, for the adults, the end was probably mercifully swift. Japanese soldiers were adept at severing a head with a single clean swipe of a katana sword.
But you're getting bayoneted. You're stabbed repeatedly and going to bleed out. Oh.
That's weird.
It's awful. These things happen to people.
And so, remember the Hopevales. So their oldest daughter, she didn't learn of her parents' execution until the following year. But she ended up becoming a counselor in a hospital in Colorado.
Okay.
Treating Japanese prisoners of war. And and so they asked her when asked why she was kind to the prisoners, Peggy stunned them in. She said, because my parents were killed by the Japanese army, she explained that it was, wait for it, I'm going to call them by 2 names, Yahweh No, 3 names: Yahweh, Yeshua, and Jesus, who'd watched away her hatred and given her love for all men, even enemies. So you have like sacrifice where these people knew that they were going to die. So to protect the Filipinos, instead of still trying to hide and have them risk getting something happen to them because they was harboring them, they resigned themselves to the fact that they were going to get executed. They wanted to pray.
So they volunteered, right?
And
they volunteered to be executed if they would leave the Filipino people alone.
They could have left, but because they wanted to continue to preach the word of Jesus, they stayed. But then like here, she was helping prisoners of war because, blood of the Lamb, Jesus. It's like it's one of those things where religion used to be. I mean, to some extent, it's still that way, Like even in this one, they was like, I don't know how they could know this unless someone said this, but they're like, when our parents asked for time to pray, what did they pray? Then they sit there and counted Jesus' words in Luke 23:24, which is basically, if you know anything about Jesus on the cross, it's, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, kind of thing. So it's like, it's one of those things you don't, until you read stories like this, like you don't hear about it as much now in Christian religion, but most religions, there's that sacrifice where it's like, it's not necessarily you relegated yourself to the idea that if this is happening because God is making it happen. So as long as I'm continuing to preach His word, anything that happens, just what's the word I want to use? It helps my ascension, right?
Yeah.
So
it's pretty clear that they put a lot more value on their soul and the afterlife, including the souls of these Filipinos.
Why did that sound like it's wrong?
It does sound.
I was like, no, that's not right.
I said it like it's like I'm saying jalapeno, but I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah. But yeah, they stayed knowing that regardless of what happened to them, that they would be secured in an afterlife, and they wanted to make sure that these other people, these Filipinos, were secured as well. That's crazy. Sacrifice. You're right. I mean, that's a faith that you don't see anymore.
And that's one of the reasons. Like I said, I'm surprised. It's one of those stories where it's like you would think that they would be more about. Like there's in Saginaw, Michigan, there's a church that's named after the Hopevale Martyrs.
Is that right?
Yeah. But it's not like it's not like there's a lot about it, and that's one of those things that to me, like nowadays, something like this happened, it would, and I guess for the time they didn't have, what we have now. They didn't have social media, or they just had word of mouth. But like, it's one of those things. Just reading something like this, like the things people, and again, you can't knock people like for what they believe in, but it's like one of those things, like just going in, like how you said the guy threw himself on a grenade. It's like you have to be a pretty strong
in
person.
that mindset already,
and a pretty strong person.
That's a split second decision.
Right.
And what they'll do to spread the word of God is so important to them that they'll risk what they risk to just keep spreading. It sounds ludicrous to us, and that's my thing is like there are a lot of people that really are truly good people, and God moves them to this, and religion moves them to be good people and save others and do things for others. It's like, but there's just so many people that also use it for sinister rules or their own things or negative and pushing it down people's throats that we forget about these people that are really like are great. It helps them, and religion helps so many. There's so many people that are like, they use the Lord to get from a bad situation, and I just let God bring me up out of this, and that's great for them.
They said how after they asked what they allowed them to pray, because the Japanese believe in religion as well, so they allowed them, but they came back and basically told them that they were ready to die, right? And just think about that just now, like how back in the day when you had slaves fighting in gladiator type atmosphere, it's like, we who are about to die salute you. It's like these people were fighting for their freedom, but then they know that they knew that without a shadow of doubt, good chance they probably won't make it out of here. But if they did, they knew that they would be free. So it's like, I guess it's one of those, like, your will has to be strong to really, be able to say, I'm going to do this. It's like if you see a little kid about to get hit by a car, you probably run out and stop the kid because you don't want to see that. But then it's like, in that moment, if someone asks you, would you step in front of a bullet from you? Probably be like, no, hell no.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the resolve and the things that people had, and people withstood. And I always hear the greatest generation, where I was, you people, you kids today don't know what we sacrifice, and even the boomers too. But anyway, well, thanks, Art, for covering that. That's good. Hey, time heads, we ended up going pretty long on this episode. We ended up doing about 2 hours, so I'm going to cut this into 2 episodes, and we'll be back with Hunter's story in the next episode. And Artstar will be back, and I'll finish up December of 1943. Thanks for listening. It's time to get out of here, Chuck Berry.
Have you been down on the streets today? Say, yeah, now, baby, it's about to get crazy. Everybody's got something to say. We got 10,000 people screaming, oh my God, it's over, but they're never gonna take us away. So you better get believing there's a brand new feeling. If you're asking, I say stay awake, stay awake.
Matt Truman Ego Trip is the greatest band of all time. Buy their music. Also, American Timelines is a product of History for Jerks and a member of the Queen City Podcast Network. Find out more about History for Jerks at historyforjerks.com. Check out the Gruff and Loud Show on YouTube and the Nerd School podcast featuring the sexy Artstar. There's also a dumb t-shirt shop on Threadless, created by History for Jerks. You can buy a Gordon Jump shirt or an Edie McClurg shirt. It's really dumb and stupid.